I used to work for a local council, within their street works department, maintaining roads and footpaths etc. Our official hours were 7:30-16:00. A lot of the more conscientious employees or those that woke up early would get into work at least half an hour ahead of time and start work then. All road workers like to get their jobs done as soon as possible. Due to the fact that these people started work early and would often work through their break times or if shorter breaks they would get finished early, around 14:30. They would then return to the depot, clean off their works vehicles and prepare for the next day. We would then leave early around 15:30 as we had finished all our assigned work for the day. One supervisor who was very corporately minded got wind of this and started docking people's wage. I'm a union rep at this time and try to have a reasonable conversation with him and get him to be a bit more flexible with his thinking as senior management didn't have a problem with it. Obviously it didn't happen. So I said to the supervisor, if we have to obey that rule we will obey all the rules. Workers only starting at 7:30, the depot is chaos as now instead of 50 workers getting their vehicles and materials over an hour and a half period they all try to get them at once. Also productivity dropped further as the workers started taking their full breaks etc. Supervisor is in charge of monitoring productivity and starts trying to punish workers for the drop. I as union rep am asked to attend these meetings and help the workers. Naturally I agree. When in the meetings I explain calmly and clearly the reason for the drop in productivity. The supervisor tries to bully the workers and myself and I then ask him, so let me get this straight, you're trying to punish us for obeying the rules? He stutters and mumbled and says this meeting is finished. After this the department had to start paying for more overtime due to the jobs that needed doing as they were no longer being done. This isn't story of mine, but my mother's from the time she worked as tech support for an superbig 3-letter firm. Background. My mom worked in 1990s in this firm as in server tech support. Also, I'm not from the US, but Czech Republic. One day she received a call from one of state agencies, that their system is not working at all. So she drove to the town to investigate. The conversation looked something like this. The conversation. Cast. M, my mom. W, office worker. And hashtag X200B. M, so, what is the problem? W, I can turn on the computer, but I can't even log in. This happens to all of us on all of the computers. M confirms that it is true and goes to see the server. When she walks in, she can see dark server, with cloth and coffee pot on it. Not to mention table and chairs in the super small room. M, why did you unplug the server? W, oh, we thought that it's not needed since nobody works on this computer. And this is the only air-conditioned room in the building, so we made it our rest area. And hashtag X200B. The outcome. This happened again few weeks later. This time, Mum was able to determine by phone. They replaced server with a fridge. I work at a popular coffee shop chain in an area where opening up establishments for walk-ins is optional due to COVID-19. We have signs on the door that state the lobby is currently closed on all of our doors, but customers seems to blind to it. It amuses me when customers are not paying attention and walk into the clearly locked door like flies trying to escape a closed window. It also amuses me even more when Karen/Brad/Gertrude starts getting mad because they just have to get their orders but are forced to go into the drive-thru like everyone else. One time though someone managed to walk in. My assumption was that someone forgot to lock one of the doors when coming back from running out food, and literally stood in front of the cash register for 10 minutes until someone realized she was there. She was annoyed but even more so when my assistant manager told her to get out. Fun times. The fact that people can't read really shouldn't surprise me because they don't ever listen when I repeat back their orders, but watching several people walk into a door multiple times a day is a pretty good way with dealing with the monotony of the daily grind. I, 23F, work at a clothing store and this happened about 2 years ago. I had 3 customers left before I could start closing the store and go home. There was a mother and daughter, and then another lady. The daughter, 18-19 years old, walks up to the counter and her mother walks off to go look at something. She places a shirt on the counter, which was size large, and asks me if we have an extra large as she doesn't think the large one will fit her. I scan the item and let her know that we do and that the system is telling me it should be on the rack. She said thank you and that she will go have a look. I was about to ask the next customer to come up to the counter when all of a sudden I hear, "Did you just call my daughter fat?" I was so confused. When I was talking to her daughter, the daughter was so nice and polite and thanked me for helping her. There was nothing off about it. Me, no. Yes, you did. You told her she needed another size. Me, no, I didn't. She asked for a larger size and I told her we have it. So my daughter is lying to me? Me, I didn't say that. I said she asked for a larger size and I said we have it. I can't remember her exact words, but basically she went on a rant, yelling across the counter, that went along the lines of, "How rude I am, look at you, do you think you're anything special, you should be ashamed and how dare you." This whole time, her daughter is standing right next to her, not saying a single word. I was still so confused by the whole situation and ended up going into the stock room to cry. So I am a nurse who works at an urgent care. We often give patients casts and splints for sprains or fractures. This durable medical equipment, DME, is built by a third-party company. We fill out the DME paperwork, send it to them, and they send it to insurance or the patient. So today, a young girl and her dad come in. The girl has a fractured ankle and our doctor has me put her into an air cast for her injury. I explained to the dad that oftentimes this company we bill out to will send the bill to insurance, who often denies to cover it, and when they forward that bill to the patient, they mark up the price by sometimes double or triple. I talked to dad and to the patient that it's best to cash pay for such an item, so it'll cost $25 instead of upwards of $100 or $200. Dad agrees and they go on their way. A few hours later, Mom calls and is screaming her head off about how her friend is an insurance rep and we are just trying to skim money off the top and take their cash and blah blah blah. I listen to her go off and try to tell her that DME that is way overcharged since insurance typically doesn't cover it, but I get cut off and screamed at again and she absolutely demands that I bill it to insurance. So fine, lady, I will bill it to insurance like you ask. She gets off the phone and I call the company to have them change it from cash pay to insurance. A few days later, I inevitably get a call back from the same screaming lady about how ridiculous a $250 bill for an aircast is. At this point the bill has been denied by insurance and the cost is final to her now. DLDR, angry lady insists I bill her insurance for an item that isn't covered and ends up paying 10 times what it's worth. Scene, years ago, pre-digital records. My ex and I parted ways after several years of fighting. We were trying to be civil due to the kids. 3 months after I kicked him out, I put together a package of papers I thought he might want. I had them in a large manila envelope. When he dropped off the kids, I met him at the door to give it to him. Me, here you go, handing it out. X, what's that, stepping back, looking like it's a snake. Me, I found some papers that I thought you might want. X, there's nothing here that I want. Me, I really think. X, you think, I don't care what you think. Me, you don't even want to look. X, I already told you, you have nothing I want. Me, what do you expect me to do with them? X, I don't care, do whatever you like. Throw them away, burn them, just leave me alone. Me, as he is walking away, I think you are making a mistake. X, I already made the mistake, 7 years ago, referencing wedding date. A few weeks later, I did have a fire, in the fireplace. Oh, what was in the envelope you ask? Car title. HS diploma. HS transcript. College transcript. Letter from the White House. DD 214, last surviving proof of service, original records were destroyed in a fire. Pictures, school and his childhood, pictures of him I saved for the kids. Divorce decree, first wife. Child support papers, also first wife. Birth certificate, his. About 6 months later, he asked if I had seen one of them. Added to ad. Thank you for the gold. Hello, I'm going to share something to you that happened to me last night. So for a bit of background, I'm a 13 male in the UK and I have a Doberman I normally take out in the back gardens so she can go do the toilet before bed, but this time was a lot different. I had opened the back door and she darted off into the darkness, so nothing out the ordinary, but when I called her back, she didn't show. I sat there for maybe 15 minutes waiting when I seen something move in the distance. I'm trying to keep this as uncliché as possible. I brushed it off and that's when my dog just walks into the flat. When I walked in and shut the door, my blood ran cold as I heard the door handle jiggle. It had to be a person. It wasn't windy or anything. I flung myself against the door and my dog had started growling with her back hairs standing up. I heard heavy breathing and panting out there. It was terrifying. I took off my slippers and held them in my hand so I wouldn't make noise. When I walked away from the door, I practically flung myself up those stairs and into my house. Later that night though, when I had woke up in the middle of the night, I heard faint cackles from outside. I just lay there horrified. If the person on the other side of that door is reading this, let's not meet ever again. So last night I was on call for our support desk until about 6:30, give or take. We have our clients, mostly lawyers, who can call up when something's broken. So I receive a call at 6:20 from our lovely caller. Cast. Me. Confused guy. Me, thank you for calling tech support, how can I help? CG, I have been calling and calling you and no one has gotten back to me. Me, I'm sorry to hear that, can I take your name and company that you're calling from? CG, yeah, it's confused guy from business office. At this point I spend around 5 minutes looking through all of our systems, old and new, for confused guy and business office. Me, sir, did you say you were calling from business office? CG, yes. Me, well, I actually can't find you on our systems. Were you trying to reach tech support? CG, I thought this was Total ID Fair and Support Company? Me, no sir, not us at all. Strikes me how people don't hear me say thank you for calling tech support when they call up. Please excuse my formatting, I'm on mobile. It was glorious to not have to filter myself, but surprisingly it was the calmest I've ever been with her on the phone. She's a known regular, grumpy and just never satisfied and always want to complain about the staff. What a reasonable person would do is transfer out somewhere else, but she is not a reasonable person obviously. She calls right away, just straight to the point, asking who was helping her earlier in the day because the girl was rude. I had a pretty good idea who it was, but being not 100% sure, I didn't want to call her out by name, which in my opinion is a reasonable approach. So I just said we have 3 female regulars that work at the pharmacy, which is true, and I didn't know who it was, kind of true. She went around in this circular line of questioning, who was it? I don't know, repeated maybe 5 times, before she jumped on me and said, are you one of them? One of them implied as being people that she doesn't agree with. I said, well ma'am, I'd hope you can tell from my voice that I am not a female. She made this awkward laughing noise and said, hey, that is not what I meant, as if the alternative implication was better. I just kept repeating myself until she got off the phone. Good reminder why walking away from this job is a great idea. Tifu by assuming I was being flirty with a girl. This happened a few hours ago and I'm still super embarrassed. Today, I flipped up by accidentally flirting with a guy who I believed was a girl. I, F19, answered a question that someone asked in a uni group chat. The person had a unisex name that I personally have never seen from a boy. At the end of my answer I added a little X and then thought nothing of it. The girl responded with a thanks and then said, "Do I got a cheeky X?" and then added some crazy emojis. Still thinking this was a girl, I responded back with a kissy face as I thought this was just a bit of banter between 2 girls. An hour later, I was video calling my boyfriend when I see I have a follow request on Instagram from a person with the same name. The person in the profile picture is quite clearly a boy. I go back into the chat and reread it and see that it was actually a guy who I just assumed was a girl, and even their FB profile pic was quite obviously a boy. I then realize he had also sent a FB friend request and had messaged me to chat. Luckily my boyfriend is understanding and trusts me, but I feel so bad. I also feel bad for the other guy, thinking I may have been flirting with him and leading him on. Today has not been my brightest moment. Skeptical. TL, Dr. I sent a kissy face to a person I thought was a girl, now realized it's a boy, and he's tried to add me on social media. I feel so bad because I have a boyfriend and didn't mean to lead him on. This happened a long time ago, but this thread made me think of this story. My first job, when I was 18, was a corporate retail company known for their denim. This being my first job, I was learning about customer service and navigating my customers' styling needs. I was very socially awkward, but for the most part people liked working with me because I was honest but tried to be mindful of my feedback. As I was organizing the denim wall, a woman approached me for my help with finding a pair of jeans. I asked her what style of denim she was looking for and what size she feels comfortable in. By looking at her, she was on the curvier side with a pear-shaped tight body. I pulled out her size in an array of styles but especially presented our curvy fit denim to her and told her, "I feel like this fit is perfect for you." She saw that it was a curvy fit and her face kind of fell, but she headed into the fitting room to try them on. I was helping other customers for a bit. When I went back to the fitting room to check on the woman with the jeans, she was gone. I asked my coworker that was working near the fitting rooms and cash register if he had seen my customer. He said that she just finished up and he rang her up already. He also went on to tell me that she said that I had made her feel really uncomfortable with the curvy fit jean comment, but the jeans I picked out for her were a perfect fit. I felt so bad about the way I made her feel, but I kind of laughed that the jeans did end up being a great fit for her. I'm working last night 2 to 10 shift, pool area closes at 10 when I leave. We're the only hotel around here accepting everyone, not just essential employees. We have a hot tub right next to our pool area. I have some teen girls come up and complain about a man in the hot tub touching himself. Flip, is the first thought that comes to mind. We don't have a camera directly in the pool area. I get up, walk over and peek in. Sure as shoot, there he is completely pleasuring himself in the hot tub, hands and pants, everything. The girls told me that he didn't say anything to them, just kept to himself. Now I have to call the police because what else am I supposed to do? Cops come and deal with him. Needless to say, the tub is being drained as we speak, but WTF? Who does that? BTW, he also had a tub in his room. I, 13F, have always been into changing my hair every couple of weeks. I'm pretty sure I've used almost all the brands at my local hair shop, but I recently started looking into this new dye that I've never seen. I'm thinking, wow, I've got to try this all new hair dye, it must be awesome. But oh, how wrong I was. I bought it this morning in the color light pink, and immediately rushed to the bathroom to mix it up and put it in my hair. Then, when I got it on, I sort of fell asleep in the bathtub, without any water, and woke up 4 hours later and found out half my hair has fallen out, and I'm pretty sure there's more to come. I started washing it off as fast as I could, and in the end I walked out in shame with an absolutely horrific head of hair, yet the pink is delightful. TL, doctor decided to dye my hair with a new brand, fell asleep and now I'm half bald. I work in the logistics division of a big, in my country, chain of stores. We also cooperate with a few others chains in the same sector, and so we store a few profile articles with their logos on them at our warehouse. After asking for, and being denied, a new laptop from the IT department for several years, they finally gave in and I got to use a new laptop at work. Great was the joy. However, they refused to give me a bag to carry it around on travels when I visited other facilities in this same company. At first I just carried it out in the open all the way from the parking lot into whatever office or meeting room I was to go to. This wasn't obvious enough, so by the third time I had to travel with my new laptop, I found a plastic bag with the logo of one of these other chains we were cooperating with. This didn't attract any attention before my boss and I were late for a meeting with upper management due to heavy traffic. When we finally arrived at the meeting, everybody else were already seated and ready to begin. As we sat down, I pulled up my computer from our cooperative competitor chain's bag and an absolute silence settled in the room. Turned out the meeting's agenda was terminating the cooperation with this particular competitor. Awkwardness ensued. By the time we were back at our usual offices, a brand new laptop carrying bag without any logos was waiting for me in my office. This may not fit here, but I figured it was at least worth a laugh. I work as an installer for a well-known home/commercial security company in my area. As we also provide camera coverage, the company has been upgrading the operating system our recording servers run on to the latest version for free. I was given a bunch of service tickets: call and make contact with customer, visit their location, get physical details from the machine, submit a form to our support team to create the upgrade package. Simple, right? I call on this one establishment, get no answer at the number provided, but I left a professional voicemail letting the person know who I was and why I was calling. We were told to do our best to make contact with each customer to provide their established brand of customer service. I called the published number in a Google search and was told to go ahead and stop by. My partner and I roll up in our truck and ask to speak with the contact named on the service ticket. Someone goes to find them, and we wait patiently for about 15 minutes. They come back with someone else, who is asking why we want to see that person. When I explain why, not only am I informed that they no longer use our video service, the person I was asking for hadn't worked for them in about 15 years. We apologized profusely, and left, making sure to contact the office to note the error in their record keeping. I did get a call back from the first number I tried. He informed me that he had not worked for that company for about 5 years, and wasn't sure why we still had his number. That was neither the first nor the last time I had such an experience while working on that side project, and I got good at apologizing for things that weren't my fault. It was, however, the most interesting, and embarrassing, one. Did our company really drop the ball that much, not keeping in touch with our accounts to note changes in services and contact people? TL, Doctor, the company I work for sucks at record keeping, and I had to suffer the consequences, repeatedly. This happened a couple of months back, but I recently saw something that triggered the memory, so I'd like to share it. You know that driver on the road that is always bullying people, like tailgating. If his lane is 1 second too slow, he angrily changes lane without signaling and then dangerously cuts in all the lanes when he can. When the lights turn green and you're not moving the split second it turns green, he goes ham on the horn and are inches too close to your ass. Or always cuts the queue by forcefully sticking his head in without signal. I encountered this douchebag every day after work at 5 p.m. Always doing the same shoot and bullying everyone on the road. One day I have the bad luck and he's riding so close to my ass, revving his engine for me to go faster. I'm obeying the speed limit. So I decide to have my very simple but very petty revenge on him only because of where he's tailgating me. The location where he's driving so dangerously close to me is a road that two-way but is so narrow that only one car can drive at a time. It's also the road that leads up to my house. As we both turn into this narrow road, I lift my feet off the accelerator and literally let my car roll, painfully slow down the road. The best part is I'm obeying the rules. Since it's a residential area, I'm actually obeying the speed limit. Oh man, it was so satisfying seeing him try to cut me but can't, and he keeps driving so close my ass and goes left and right to show he's trying to cut me and revs his engine. About 10 seconds later I reach my house and turn in, he immediately steps on the pedal and zooms off dangerously. I work at a small-town coffee shop that has managed to adapt and stay busy during COVID-19 by utilizing a window for walk-up service. A regular problematic customer, let's call him TJ, is a typical middle-aged man riddled with toxic masculinity. He often makes female employees and customers uncomfortable with his comments. Lately he's been around a lot, being typical TJ. Today he came to our window and ordered a coffee. Cool, nothing out of the ordinary. A co-worker asked him if he would like to tip via our Square register. We normally don't verbally ask customers, but with the current pandemic we are not allowing customers to touch our iPad system. He proceeded to tell her to put 100, and reassured them he wanted to tip that much because he appreciates our hard work and effort and wants to chip in since our business has been a bit slower. Okay, I gave him that and almost have a change of heart about TJ. We both outwardly thank him and he goes on his way. I text my boss about this uncharacteristic interaction with TJ, and through their end of the register system she was able to look at the transaction. They noticed that not only was the credit card he used not in his name, but in his boss's name, on their company card. Typical TJ. What a D-bag. So this happened in sophomore year. I am now a college senior. Backstory: freshman year, there is this group of girls I see regularly in the dining hall. They always sit at the same table. My friends and I do the same. We have our own spot. Every single day at the dining hall we'd see them, and vice versa. It gets to the point that there are mutual interests between me and one of the girls. My friends notice it and so do her friends. We would stare at each other, catching glances, etc. You know the drill. Every day lunch and dinner, somehow they are always there. Nothing came out of it until sophomore year. Note, her group consists of my crush, who I will refer to as E, her attractive friend, we will call her G, and her other friend, of which is not relevant in the story. My friends always think G is very attractive, and I agree, but I have always liked E. She is also very good looking. I like her personality, and she seems fun. Anyway, sophomore year I choose to live in dorm, while my group of friends move to apartment. So naturally I spend most of my dining alone. This one day, I wake up early, and it's unusual time for me to eat, but flip it, why not? I go to the dining hall, lo and behold, her friend G show up as well. I pick up my foods quickly and rush to the second floor, where I usually sit. But only G is there. This gives me the confidence, as I always fear that my friends or her friends will make fun of me. In my brain, I prepare the speech already. The plan is to go up to G and tell her that I like E. So I actually get up to her table. But my god, up close she's even more beautiful than I thought. I am perplexed in a good way. She looks angelic. I struggle to come up with words. And suddenly, I just tell her I like her. Flip, can't recover from this. It's G not E, why am I telling her this? I mean to tell her I like her friend. But since I flip it up already, I proceed to ask if she feels the same way. To which she let out a disappointing "oh" and say no. I already know the answer anyway even before she says it. At this point, I don't know what to do, I just say my bad and go back to my seat. I want to explain after that, but it would be awkward, and no one would believe it anyway. So the next day, I see E's face, she looks sad, and will not look at me. A few weeks go by, everything is normal except I change my eating schedule and actively avoiding places that they can see me. I have since moved out of dorm and live in my own apartment. I haven't seen them since that semester as our campus is huge. DL, doctor, asked out my crush's attractive friend instead of her because I panicked and was "I'm an idiot. P.S. I am sorry E. Not a server so no hard feelings if this gets removed. Before everything, my husband's grandmother would take the whole 6+ gang out to eat but tip horribly. Was never rude to the staff or anything, but tipped like 2 on an 80 bill. I pulled our server aside and said I'd be back as soon as we got her in her car and on her way. OFC I came back and took care of it, but should I have done something else? I've done the same thing about 4 times and I can't call out this old lady but I don't want to have anyone worried that that's their tip when people start to leave. What with things opening up this seems like it's going to come up again and you guys don't need shoot to be made worse for you. Backstory, just over a year ago, in our school we were told that we can't charge our phones directly from the wall outlet but for some weird reason, we can plug an electric kettle and use it even if it's not relevant to the subject. It sort of affected me since my 3-year-old phone barely manages 4 hours of screen on time and that's with super light usage, social media, YouTube and documents. I had the brightest idea and asked a teacher making sure that it only applies to wall outlets and the teacher said yes, you can't charge via the wall outlet unless it's a laptop used for academic purposes. Bingo. My malicious compliance, I weaned out and bought 1800 PHP, roughly $36 power bank that had 2000 mAh in it. It was large that it could last a day of constant drain but light enough to not add weight to the bag. For those of you wondering why would I spend that much towards a power bank, it's because the cheapo ones are really sketchy, might break or even explode, which could damage your phone too. Had it fully charged up and went to school with it. The fallout. My teacher couldn't do anything about me charging my phone as the electricity is not coming from the outlet, which means I don't get a violation report. Additionally, I properly followed their rule as I haven't been charging off the wall but with something else. The next week we were encouraged to bring power banks but some people still wanted to charge via the wall outlet. It's been a year since the policy and practically half of my classmates borrow my power bank but I don't mind, if it means them not getting into trouble then it's fine. Edit. We use phones most of the day since our activities are online-based. School Wi-Fi barely works and computer lab is always occupied. So technically we're forced to use our phones for online activities most of the day. Frugal, showing up for happy hour. Cheap, getting sat 90 minutes before happy hour and deciding you'll just wait to order. Frugal, ordering a fruit juice without ice. Cheap, ordering a cocktail without ice thinking you'll get a stiffer drink instead of a poorly mixed, warm, and unfestive brew. Frugal, splitting the bill evenly. Cheap, needing separate checks for 5 items. Frugal, using a discount but still tipping on the full amount. Cheap, using a discount and tipping on the adjusted total. Frugal, speaking up when a dish isn't up to snuff and getting something better. Cheap, eating 3/4 of the plate then just asking them to take it off the bill. Frugal, it's someone's birthday. Smile. Cheap, there's 4 birthdays at the table. Frugal, everyone orders water. Cheap, you brought your own Kool-Aid/tea packet. Frugal, brings their own sauce packets. Cheap, takes bottles of condiments home. I'll probably wake up with a bunch more. What are some of your frugal versus cheap moments? First time posting, currently a EMS dispatcher for a private ambulance company for 3 years now. We take some calls, however, they're usually seizures, psych, and falls. This one? Probably should have been psych, but unfortunately she wasn't the patient. This call happened in my first year, while I was pretty fresh and didn't understand the power of controlling a call. And #X200B. Me, okay, tell me exactly what happened. CLR, yeah, my mom fell in the other room, you know we have her locked in there right now, but yeah she fell and I think she may have hit her head. Me, okay, are you with her now? CLR, well, you see, she has dementia, and we live in a new home, so she is locked in there. You see, we can't have her wandering because of the bears that are around here. Me, Have you gone to check on her yet? CLR, no, I can't unlock her door because she will get out and the bears will get her. Me, can you please go check on the patient? CLR, yeah, I think she might have hit her head, it sounded like she hit the end table, that's what woke me up, but even our big dog, insert large dog brand, is afraid to go outside because there are bears here at this new house. Please send the ambulance but make sure they get in and out quick because the bears will get them. Rinse and repeat for literally every one of the 10 questions involved with a fall. I was essentially working with a third-party caller as she flat out refused to unlock her mother from the room until the imps got there, let alone even go look at her. And #X200B. I kid you not, I heard way more about these bears than I ever got out of her regarding her fallen mother. While I may have wanted to bash my head into the desk repeatedly asking her the questions, now I can have a good belly laugh over it. From what I do remember though, Mom was transported alright, and no EMTs were mauled by the darn bears. Used to work with a Kevin. The year was 1993. Our office had a credit union. Kevin came up to me with a beaming smile. Said he just took out $1,000 from the credit union and bought savings bonds. He was going to make 4.5% interest. That's $45 a year. He also smoked 2 packs a week at $6 a pack back then. I asked him what interest rate he borrowed at. That's when he smiled even more. I got a good rate, 9%. So, Kevin was going to pay 90 interest every year to make 45 a year. I know it's compounded, spare me the math, you get my point. We only did about 100 people but I believe that was expected. My boss had us heavily staffed but that was just in case. Our systems only allow us to sell up to 35% capacity as well. Every single second after dealing with a customer, we were cleaning up and wiping down everything again, and once they'd leave the theater, we'd wipe down their seat. It felt so good to be back in that theater to the point that I was very loud and just too excited to be there. After what, 4 months of being closed, it feels good to be back. Went on holiday to Amsterdam with my brother, the Kevin of this story. We were waiting at a train station when I noticed he'd gone quiet. When I asked him what was wrong, he said a creepy guy behind me had been staring at him for about 5 minutes. I turn around and see the guy staring at us. I look down, and notice he's holding a white cane with a ball on the end. Me, Kevin, he's blind. Look at his cane. Kevin, no he's definitely not, he's staring right at me. The train arrives and the guy starts to walk towards the platform, using his cane to guide him. My brother had gotten into a 5-minute stare-off with a blind guy. Edited to correct spelling errors. This happened about 7 years ago. I lived in an apartment building and the apartment next door to mine was a halfway house for women and kids from abusive homes or that were homeless and needed to be rehoused. It wasn't somewhere anyone stayed for very long, so people were often moving in and out. I came home on this particular day and there was a moving truck on the street and some removal men were carrying out furniture. I go inside and one of the removal men is struggling with some furniture, so I ask if he needs a hand. So I help him carry it out to the truck. I turn around and see the woman who had been living there and her kids. I smile and wave to them. It was at that point I noticed they were crying. I go back inside and there's a letter taped to their front door. I thought I was helping them move but I was helping to evict them. I still feel guilty about it to this day. TLDR, tried to be helpful, evicted a family. This happened a long time ago, when my daughter was 3 or 4 years old. Throughout the last 20 years, this story transitioned into a cautionary tale that I get to tell over and over again to first-time parents. As any first-time mother, I tried everything in the book to keep my precious one at bay. Not that she was a naughty child, but more so a sneaky one. And boy did that come and bite me in the ass. So after one of those times she pulled a sneaky on us, I warned her that the boogeyman will come and get her, because well, that's what he does with naughty kids. She took that at heart. The same day, we were to have a family gathering. As a young family, we lived in a small apartment on the 7th floor, and as a young family, the dad was at work, while I was left to cook for 5 people. My culinary skills extend to meatballs and fries. While I make them, I noticed that the plate I was putting them on was not becoming fuller. In fact, each time I turned around, I thought there were less meatballs and fries. Whatever, I keep cooking like crazy, listening to music, and at peace that the top of the head of my small one was budging around me and helping. Sometime after that, I really start questioning my sanity, because I could swear those plates were not filling up. The child wasn't around me. So I go to the balcony and I see my precious daughter throwing all those meatballs and fries on the street. She looks up to me, says I didn't want the boogeyman to be hungry while he was waiting for me. Lovely. How can I get mad at something like this? At this point I understood she's not one to be messed around with. So I stopped with all those folklore stories immediately. Doctor, tried to scare my child with the boogeyman, backfired big time, as she was throwing food out of the balcony to feed him, so he's not hungry while he's waiting for her. I have worked in various customer service jobs my entire career. 20+ years, I can tell you that if you make my job difficult I will absolutely not be trying my best to make your experience any better. Would you talk to your niece or nephew the way you just spoke to the young person who answered the phone? You know that person is just doing their job with the training they have received so far and the support they have available at the moment. Some teams have very specific chains of command that the first person on the phone has no way to change. Please don't speak rudely to that person. I understand the Karens of the world want to talk to the manager. I understand why. Karen thinks that the next person up the chain will be able to help. And likely, yes, I can help more. As a manager I do have some ability to be more helpful. What I need you to understand that my willingness to be helpful starts at a tenth and drops quickly the more rude and pushy you get. I am also just a person, trying to do my job successfully for 8 hours a day, just like you do at your job. Just a quick vent. I swear everyone's sense of entitlement has grown extent during this pandemic. As an essential service worker that has worked through all the shutdowns and process changes I have seen such an increase in demanding customers. We have worked with less than half our usual staff trying to keep our business running. I am grateful to have been able to keep my job, so I don't want to complain too much, but honestly, customers need to realize that things have changed. You can't be in a hurry anymore, you can't demand all the things. Dr. Bad customers create bad customer service experiences for themselves. This happened a long time ago, when my daughter was 3 or 4 years old. Throughout the last 20 years, this story transitioned into a cautionary tale that I get to tell over and over again to first-time parents. As any first-time mother, I tried everything in the book to keep my precious one at bay. Not that she was a naughty child, but more so a sneaky one. And boy did that come and bite me in the ass. So after one of those times she pulled a sneaky on us, I warned her that the boogeyman will come and get her, because well, that's what he does with naughty kids. She took that at heart. The same day, we were to have a family gathering. As a young family, we lived in a small apartment on the 7th floor, and as a young family, the dad was at work, while I was left to cook for 5 people. My culinary skills extend to meatballs and fries. While I make them, I noticed that the plate I was putting them on was not becoming fuller. In fact, each time I turned around, I thought there were less meatballs and fries. Whatever, I keep cooking like crazy, listening to music, and at peace that the top of the head of my small one was budging around me and helping. Sometime after that, I really start questioning my sanity, because I could swear those plates were not filling up. The child wasn't around me. So I go to the balcony and I see my precious daughter throwing all those meatballs and fries on the street. She looks up to me, says I didn't want the boogeyman to be hungry while he was waiting for me. Lovely. How can I get mad at something like this? At this point I understood she's not one to be messed around with. So I stopped with all those folklore stories immediately. Doctor, tried to scare my child with the boogeyman, backfired big time, as she was throwing food out of the balcony to feed him, so he's not hungry while he's waiting for her. Alright, if you've read any of my previous you don't need this shoot, but serving police officer Northwest England currently in my force's firearms unit. And #X200B. It's around 2 p.m. when we hear a call go out. Charlie, my 286 need urgent assistance to, road name / in, area / we've been approached by a female. She claims there has been a shooting to our left. If you can start and was in hotel units. And #X200B. That's received. Standby. Yeah, any available hotel units in the area of, area / head towards the job I'm sourcing. Was can I also have some traffic and disruption patrols for PSU purposes please? About 20 units in total. Call up saying they're going towards, and then about 5 ARVs including us. And #X200B. We arrive on scene to an officer carrier and 2 response cars who have got out in a hurry. We jump out, grab ALS kits and go over to an officer who leads us to a house. There are 2 males, one who is flat on his back unresponsive and one who is laying upper body upward against a wall with a GSW to the leg. We both go to the male on the wall who is controlled and move to the male who is unresponsive. He has 9 GSWs to his torso, 3 exit wounds. And #X200B. We begin to control bleeding as more ARVs and officers get on scene. 2 advanced paramedics and 4 ambulances arrive. One crew immediately takes the male with the leg wound onto a wheelchair and into an ambulance, while all the other paramedics and firearms officers on scene work on the critical male, who is now in cardiac arrest. And #X200B. Our ambulance service colleagues request an air ambulance, who then attended and landed on a nearby field. The doctor was pretty sure it was going to be a fatal, but ended up transferring blood and taking over his breathing, attempting to control the bleeding. And #X200B. They ended up moving him into the helicopter and off to the major trauma center in the city. This was one of the examples of teamwork due to the quick work by officers and the specialized care of the paramedics and air ambulance team. And #X200B. I am afraid to say the male, shot 9 times, was declared dead on arrival at hospital. After 3 hours of the best medical care he could have got, the male shot in the leg survived. Back in my early college days, I decided to finally get myself a dog. I was never allowed a pet as a kid, and once I was out and owned my own, I decided to get the thing I always wanted but couldn't have. The dog I decided on was a 50-ish pound Basset mix. She had the look of a German Shepherd with tubby little Basset legs and the floppy ears. She looked mighty cute, but she had a ferocious bark, which ended up coming in handy later in my life. I hadn't had her for very long when I took her one day to go visit my parents. Needing gas before I hit the highway, I stopped at a gas station just down the road from my apartment. I never was a fan of this gas station since it always seemed a little sketchy, but I never had a problem there before. On this day the gas station was as busy as I had ever seen, so I had trouble finding an open stall. I finally found an open stall and cracked the window before shutting the car off so my dog in the passenger seat wouldn't overheat and she could people watch. I had literally paid for the gas and had put the nozzle in my car when I hear my dog barking like I had never heard her barking before. Anyone who has ever had a dog knows that there are different barks and each one means something different. This barking was something I had never heard from her before, and I knew something was wrong. If she hadn't been mine, I would have been terrified of this dog. This was a bark meant to say, "I will flip you up." I turn around and see a tall lanky man standing so close to the hood of my car that he was practically leaning on it, just staring at my dog. However, this wasn't staring. This was the definition of leering. Alarm bells are going off in my head as I watch him leer at my dog, who was now acting rabid, snarling and frothing at the mouth and literally throwing herself at the windshield, trying to get to the man standing as still as a statue and staring at her. I ask him if there's something I can do for him, and without breaking eye contact with my deranged dog, asks me if that was a real dog. I figured this guy must have been on some kind of drugs, but all I could manage to say was that she was very much real. He then asks if he could pet her. I look from him to her, who has now jumped onto the dashboard and is trying to headbutt the windshield. I tell him that she doesn't like men and decide that I probably should leave. He mumbles something about how soft her fur looks, and I decide to leave immediately after that comment. He doesn't break eye contact even as I get in and drive away. I had only managed to put a gallon of gas in my car at this point, but I didn't even care. I drove to my parents and told them the story. So the crackhead who wanted to skin my dog, let's not meet. Bartender at a local pizza joint. My buddy came in after a long day dealing with his 2 sick little girls. He tells me a story from today about the littlest. She's screaming for him from the bathroom. She states she's been waiting for 60 years for him. All she wanted was a cheese pizza from our place. Since they were sick, he went with something more appropriate for upset stomachs. But you can guarantee I got him a gift certificate for a cheese pizza for her when she's better. Nice to have good customers to even out the bad ones, lol. I worked in housekeeping in a hotel for months up until this past week. I'm now 35 weeks pregnant. I was scheduled to work 5+ days a week, with 20+ rooms to myself. I came into work recently, because I was on the schedule, and I could barely walk. I couldn't bend my back and my ankles were hugely swollen. I had been in L&D the night before to stop contractions. We didn't have many rooms, but 5 housekeepers in-house. Everyone was almost begging my manager to send me home, as we had too many housekeepers for the amount of rooms. Now, I'm huge at this point in pregnancy. I can't bend too far forward in general. My manager and I, discussed a couple weeks ago that she didn't want me cleaning bathtubs, so I was to have another housekeeper come clean my bathtubs. No biggie, I was fine with that. Well, the day before I quit I had went to find another HK to help with a bathtub. Said manager stopped us in the hall and asked what we were doing socializing on the clock. We explained that she was going to clean a bathtub for me and would go right back to her rooms. She yelled at me and said that if I can't do my job, I need to quit so that she can hire someone who's willing to work. I explained that it wasn't that I wasn't willing to work, Rather, that's one small task that I myself struggle with accomplishing. She didn't care. She continued yelling at me. Now, I've always hated being yelled at, so I spent the rest of my shift crying while cleaning my rooms. I got home from work, still crying. My boyfriend became extremely upset as I told him what had happened. We decided that it's in the best interest of our child that I just be done, as it's a lot of emotional trouble as well as physical. So I gave my manager her wish, and I went in and handed in my scrubs and quit. She seemed sympathetic, said she understood, was sad to see me go, and for me to come talk to her after I was released from maternity leave. Fast forward to today, another HK at said hotel was talking to this manager, while recording the conversation to send to me. She asked if I would be back after baby. The manager told her that I was lazy and a crybaby, so she would never consider hiring me back. I'm glad I quit. I feel like I dodged a bullet. I'm not sure that I'll ever be able to convince myself to work in housekeeping again. I grew up in a very abusive household. My mom was a saint, but my sperm donor would punish us for the slightest disturbance. Because of that, I've always been extra cautious about being quiet and polite around roommates. Towards the end of last year, my sister and I sold the house we co-owned as she was moving away. I was meant to rent a flat of my own, but it fell through last minute and I had to scramble for accommodation. The only place I found was a room in a private home as a lodger, lot less legal rights than a tenant in the UK. It was meant to be temporary and just for a few months, but 2020 obviously had other ideas. When the lockdown started, my landlady was furloughed. I'm self-employed and closed down my business temporarily. My landlord is a key worker who's out of the house 3 to 4 days a week. I decided to be extra polite and give my landlady space, so I've basically lived in my room for 3 months, emerging only for the bathroom or food. I'm an introvert and this was bliss for me. I genuinely thought I was being polite, as if it was my house I would hate someone bugging me whilst I'm watching TV, etc. Today I got home from the shops and my landlady tells me she wants to have a chat when her husband gets home, as I'm causing an atmosphere in the house that's making her uncomfortable. I spent the next few hours freaking out, thinking she'd kick me out in the middle of a pandemic when I'm only earning £40 a week. My landlord just asked to come into my room and have a chat. It turns out it's all a huge misunderstanding. My landlady is a big extrovert and she thinks the reason I've been staying in my room is because I hate her and have been ignoring her because I'm incredibly rude. We've talked it all out now and I've said I'll make more of an effort to interact with her, and she understands that I'm not being rude, I'm just introverted. So I'm not being made homeless yet. DL, doctor, tried to be polite and avoid my landlady to give her space during the lockdown. She thought I was being rude and hated her, so threatened to evict me in the middle of a pandemic. All good now, fingers crossed. So about a year ago I finished with my braces, Invisalign, fairly faster than most people do. This caused me to move through the trays faster because my teeth were able to move quicker than most. This brings me to when I got my retainer. I had my retainer for about 6 months until I lost it somehow. I think I accidentally threw it away. That's beside the point. I lost my retainer and I became busy that whole week and I completely forgot to get a new one. So about a year later I had to go in for my last checkup to see if everything was staying where it should be. This is when they realized that I wasn't wearing my retainer. So I told them I lost it a while back and never had the time to get a new one. So they decided to put a new one in. And this is where I knew I flipped up. They said they might have to use some force to put in my retainer because of how much my teeth moved back. After about a couple of minutes of them trying to put them in, they use a bit of wax to help the retainer slide in. This caused it to pop back into my mouth. Me at the time thinking this is not that bad, just some slight pressure, but boy was I wrong. By the time I got home my mouth was in the most pain I've ever felt before. For the rest of the day I couldn't even move my mouth due to the pain. Further in the day when I'm trying to go to bed I tried to take some Advil PM, but this never helped. So all night I was having pain sweats and migraines. This went on for about 3 days, all the while my gums were purple and bleeding from how much my teeth moved. My lesson learned. So if you ever lose your retainer and you notice your teeth start moving back, get a new one ASAP. TLDR, I lost my retainer and waited too long for a new one, causing me to be in sleepless pain for 3 days. Copied and pasted from a text conversation I had with some friends after it happened. I don't understand people that think they can return shit right now. Like, you couldn't even return prescriptions before all this and you think you can now? There was one guy yesterday who was complaining about how he didn't get the manufacturer he was expecting, and when we told him he can't return it, he went on and on about how he's going to die and it'll be all our fault. Dude didn't even try the other manufacturer. We couldn't get the other manufacturer in since it's on backorder, and I rung him up, so I remember telling him about how it was a different manufacturer and he said it was fine. He even agreed that I warned him. His excuse? You said it too late. Like. You hadn't paid yet. And you still could have said no. So what does that have to do with anything? I am 14. I am a certified referee in my state. I know the rules as I've played by them my whole life along with taking the officiating classes. At our park district, no headers for ages below 11. But in U12, it is up to the referee's discretion. So if it's a small tap it's okay. That is exactly what happens. So the coach behind me screams at the top of his lungs there are no headers in U12 5 to 16 times. I ignore him. Though I could eject him. It was last game of the season and I didn't care. After a bit of yelling, he says fine, go duck yourself then, which I turn and tell at him for saying in front of U11 kids. I wish I sent him away or ended the match. Sadly I didn't do much and my partner is a longtime referee, officiated my matches as I grew up, and he is deaf. So he has no idea what happened. The person who runs Park District in my area has been informed and is taking action. I work for a grocery chain in the US. I deal with online orders that go wrong, delivery not made, items missing, overcharging, etc. Highlight from yesterday, caller had a delivery go missing. Not uncommon. The delivery people are usually dropping off 2 or 3 purchases at once. Things get dropped at the wrong house and now your order is gone. I apologized to the caller and went about explaining how we could refund them. The caller was unhappy with my solution and demanded that we deliver her order. It had medicine in it. Medicine they needed. I apologized again and advised that all I could do was refund the money and then she could place the order again. Edit: I am not capable of resubmitting the order for the customer due to privacy rules. The customer realized that their verbal charms wouldn't work, so they changed tactics. If you guessed vague threats, pat yourself on the back. The customer wanted the money returned right now. I had informed the customer that refunds can take 7 to 10 business days to show on the card. When a vague threats of "you'll be sorry" came wafting from their lips, I lost all compassion I had. I responded, unfortunately, customer, it is now after 5 p.m. in most of the country. Even if we push the refund through, the earliest your bank would see it is tomorrow morning and it could still take 7 to 10 days for it to clear back to your account. And with a resigned sigh in my ear, I realized I had broken a Karen. We won the day. Added for clarification, the order contained no medication. It was an order of junk food. Added 2 words and more backstory. Obligatory: this didn't happen today, but years ago when I was in middle school. It was during recess, and my friends and I were playing a game called Snake Poison. Basically it's a modified version of tag. The chaser is the snake, and when you get tagged it means you have to stand paralyzed in place with your legs apart, and you can only get cured if an untagged person scampers through your legs. Game ends if everyone is paralyzed at the same time. Anyway, several of my friends were tagged and frozen, and the snake was chasing me next. He cornered me at a section where the only way out was to run through a narrow corridor between a block of classrooms and the library staircase. That was off limits for any type of recess play, but I was darned if I'd let the snake catch me. I shot for the narrow corridor to escape to the other side, and as I ran through, another student, let's call him AAA, in an older grade entered the corridor. Eager to make my escape I shot past AAA, and in the motion of swinging my arm back as I ran, my hand got caught on his side pocket of his shorts. Freak occurrence, but our school uniforms have wide-mouthed pockets. We both stared at each other for a split second, and he stared down at my traitorous hand. I yelled sorry and yanked my hand away and proceeded to run off away from the snake, who had stopped pursuing anyway, but the damage had already been done. By running away without pausing to even explain, I completed the darning portrait, that of a failed pickpocket making my escape. Luckily my sister was in his grade and pretty popular, so he never gave me any trouble, but over the next 2 years before AAA moved to high school, I had to endure his suspicious looks every time we crossed paths. TL, Dr. I was playing at recess and got my hands accidentally caught on the side pocket of a schoolmate's shorts. For 2 years he stared at like I was a pickpocket. So I used Spectrum Internet, and when I first started using it, I had really fast speeds and had absolutely no problems. As time went on, however, I noticed that the internet got slower and slower to the point where it wasn't usable. So, I endured super slow internet for a year, sometimes switching to LTE on my phone because it was faster than what I was getting. I did some speed tests on it to see how bad it was and it said my download speed's less than 1 MB and upload speed's at 0. I endured a couple more weeks of this and I eventually got tired when I consistently disconnected from class and lagged out of games due to how poor my internet was. I attempted to reset my router and turn it on and off, as I always do to fix some things, but saw no success. I checked for networks available recently for Wi-Fi and saw the Wi-Fi I've always connected to, TG1672G52, and there was this other one with the same name but with 5G after it. I've always used the one without 5G next to it because it was fast in the beginning and despite it getting slower, I still trusted it. I decided to try the one with 5G as I have never tried this connection before, and I was met with significantly higher speeds than before. I got speeds of 150 to 200 MB download speed and 10 MB upload speed. I tried it out and everything was significantly faster than before. So this whole time, for an entire year, I endured horrible internet when in reality, a much faster alternative was right under my nose. I wasted a good amount of data and lagged out of many games for nothing. DL Doctor used a poor internet connection and wasted a lot of phone data for a year when I could have simply tried another, faster connection with the same name except with 5G after it. So I decided to become a journalist about 3 years ago. During the process of that, I wrote a book that basically consists of a whole bunch of poems about my thoughts. I think I got about 5,000 copies sold, so I was pretty happy about that. Fast forward to today, I got recognized in public by someone who likes my writing. We got to talk for a couple minutes, and then she asked, "What does blue waffle mean?" Now usually, books have all these important meanings behind the titles and stuff. But I just picked mine because I liked waffles. I tried looking up a good meaning for the words. Blue waffle. Suddenly, a whole bunch of clinical recommendation stuff started popping up. I clicked on the Urban Dictionary def. And turns out, it's an STD. So first of all, why is there an STD named blue waffle? Out of everything in the world it could have been named? I wish I could change the title, but I've sold too many copies and advertised too much to do so. Darn you STD ads. TL Doctor, Diffu by accidentally naming my book after an STD ad. I can't change it, and my fans think I have STDs. This happened a few years ago. For backstory, I've taken several martial arts classes, and I'm still with my GF, now fiancé, from when this happened. So my then GF, due to traumatic incidents I will not explain, had to amputate both her legs at an extremely young age. Thanks to extremely hard work and prosthetics, removable legs, she is able to walk/run fairly good for a person with no legs. Now back a few years, some jackass at a bar thought it was funny to steal my GF's legs. She was wearing shorts, so it was pretty darn noticeable she didn't have real legs. I don't know how it happened, as I was at the bathroom, but when I came back my GF was crying and crawling on the floor, the jackass holding her prosthetics high in the air. According to my GF, jackass just pushed her and yanked her prosthetics out. So I calmly dislocated both of the jackass's shoulders and then broke both his shin bones using moves I learned in martial arts. Then I hammer-striked his nuts, and watched him crawl away. Literally. Now people say I'm the most chillin' person in the world, though if my GF gets attacked, I go nuclear right away. I called my lawyers later, and they said I was all good legally since I could claim self-defense on behalf of a person with a disability who could not adequately defend herself. Not me, but witnessed my bar manager go through this. Customer, excuse me, I've been waiting ages and you served everyone except me. Bar manager, I'm sorry love, what do you want? C, I'm not your love. Stares. BM, I'm sorry, can I get you anything? C, I think it's awful how you ignore customers who have been waiting for so long. BM, I didn't realize you had been waiting so long, what can I get you? C, well, I think this is awful, 5 people must have come after me and been served. BM, I apologize again, I'll get you your drinks now. What would you like? C, for free? BM, sorry, I can't do them for free. C, why not? I've had to wait for so long, it's the least you can do. BM, I don't think it works like that, do you want any drinks or not? C, of course I do, why do you think I was waiting at the bar? But I don't think I should have to pay. BM, you can either buy a drink or stand away from the bar, I'm afraid, that's all we can offer. C, fine. But I don't want you to serve me. BM, why not? C, because you're incompetent, you don't know what you're doing. BM, well everyone else here didn't serve you fast enough either, What difference does it make who pours your drinks? C. Well, I've just said, anyone but you. Now get somebody else. BM. Well, the other staff are busy mixing drinks, so you'll have to wait if you want them. C. Are you kidding? Flip you. BM. Flip me? I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Commence ranting and shouting, followed by the bouncer escorting her out. I'm in my 20s and have been living with roommates for a few years now. This new set is of 2 girls. Starting out it was pretty good. But soon after 2 months I became everyone's personal maid. They left messes because they knew I would clean it for them since I'm a pretty neat person. I tried talking to them more times I could count with no luck. Finally I was able to stop myself from cleaning anything at all. This annoyed them, I could tell. But they still haven't mentioned it. I only clean my room and the basement. I have cats so their litter is down there. On top of that they use my Wi-Fi and it is so slow because of it. So I asked them to help me pay for it so we could get a better package. They kept telling me yes, no problem, then I would never see the money. I've also had several conversations about it but no success. I'm seriously thinking of moving back with my dad. It's basically like living alone since he's always at work or at his girlfriend's. Is this a good idea? I would be giving them a 36-day notice. What reason should I give them for moving out? Or am I being overdramatic?